Even when it's on vibrate, it vibrates on the table. It's gonna vibrate that.
Okay.
Just put it on something soft. Something. Put it on your titty.
This is not episode 1. It's not episode 2. It's not episode 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. This is episode 10. Holy crap. Well, welcome and welcome back to episode 10 of Dicks and Politics. Happy birthday. Congratulations on turning the double digits.
Yes.
It's crazy. I always say that without Adriana, this podcast is nothing but a random, manic, fantasy of mine at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday.
Stop.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Alright, so for those of you who follow us on social media, which I want to reflect on that because when we first started this, we had 7 followers, 3 of whom were us, and then my friend Tom and a couple of robots, and now we have 150 followers. We have people liking our page on Facebook. We have people writing in. Our episodes are being streamed all over the world. Our average plays have, quadrupled?
Yeah. Every day it just gets more and more and more intense. I'm like, whoa.
So, I can't believe it. I can, but I can't. But honestly, without you, this would be nothing more than me being like, I want to do a podcast. You're the one, Adriana, that had all the recording equipment and everything. So on this episode, you've got me, Samantha.
Me, Adriana.
And me, CorBen.
And we have a lot of announcements to make. This past week was a huge week for us. So we had a chance to sort of look at what was happening behind the scenes of our podcast. And we noticed that When I Knew, which is our monthly release special, had gained a cult following of its own. And then we also looked at Microscope, and we realized that there were a lot of people, especially young people, in the scientific community that really liked Microscope, even though that episode was such a free-for-all. So we decided that we were going to put all 3 of these shows and then special edition episodes under my production company, which is called Whatever You Say Productions, and we were going to produce them as 3 completely separate entities. So for that, what we mean is all 3 of these shows now have their own identity, they have their own marketing teams, they have their own branding, they have their own pace, tonality, but the nice thing is they're all under Whatever You Say Productions. And the main goal of Whatever You Say is to start conversations. And the best way to do that is to expose people to as many different opinions, experiences, points of view as possible so that they can form their own opinions and start their own damn conversations. I've said that so many times. So it was about a week ago, Adriana and I were sitting here. It was midnight on Friday night, and both of us had one eye open, and we just were like, we can't do this.
It was more like I was staring at you from the other side of the couch, and I was the one dozing off. You were actually staring into space at me, and I just looked at you and I said, what is happening? How did we get from a group of 3, a team of 3, to, holy shit, we're doing work for a team of 20
we're
people?
Doing this.
Yeah.
So this past week, I hired how many people?
We're a team of 9 now.
I hired...
Do the math.
Okay, so we've got Abby, who's our Senior Vice President of PR and Digital Strategy. We've got Ian, who's our Senior Vice President of Analytics and Marketing. Then we've got Carrie, who does HR and administrative work, and Heather, who also does administrative and HR. Did I hire anybody else, or is that it? Well, there is... So now technically, I also hired you, Adriana, as my Chief Operating Officer. CorBen, I hired you as talent. I signed Hannah as talent. I signed Mike as talent. I am also signing somebody else as talent, and we can't announce who just yet because we are still ironing out the details of their contract, but it is going to add a level of depth and richness to our entire company, and we can't wait. So in this episode, we wanted to talk about 2 different things. First of all, we've got CorBen, who is going to lead our political segment. Then we wanted to kind of talk about what this past week meant to us and realizing that we were going to really be in the public eye. And it wasn't going to happen overnight, but it was going to happen pretty fast. And what that meant, how it felt, how we're preparing for it, and how the hell we feel now. So, without further ado, let's talk about the government shutdown, let's talk about Michael Cohen, let's talk about all of it in our political segment called What's Burning? So this is now officially the longest government shutdown in history.
Day 29.
Yikes.
And, I mean, it's almost kind of going on a month, and that's kind of scary because I was doing some research and I came across this interesting article on pbs.org, and it tracks back shutdowns since 1976.
Yikes.
Okay, 1976. By far, the shortest was February 9th. So yeah, February 9th, 2018, 9 hours. If you can't come up with completing something in 9 hours, I don't understand why it's taking us now almost a month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going back to 1976, September 30th, that was 10 days. Okay? We have September 30th, 1978, 18 days. And the second longest running government shutdown dates back to December 15th, 1995, 21 days. And I don't know if it's whether it be party lines or people's own opinions getting in the way. I think, and I've said this before, they're forgetting the middleman.
Mm-hmm.
We hire these officials to do a job and they can't even do that.
Yeah.
It's become a pissing match. It's literally become a pissing match. Now, I had a conversation with a family friend of mine, and I was saying, whatever you believe, left or right, does not matter. Promises were made, and the biggest thing that we've ever learned growing up was that don't make promises you cannot keep.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden we're coming to the realization, now we knew that was a pipe dream, that Mexico was not going to pay for the wall. I mean, that was nonsense. It was never guaranteed, it was never promised. Now we're coming to the realization that, the American people have to pay? I really don't understand where this is coming from. And I don't understand what the president, who we've instilled in trust to conduct our business on the world stage, what's going through his head. Now, he tweets out basically the America's business from day to day, and that doesn't reflect well on us because we don't see any other nation doing that. Now, on the same reflection, and I'm going to make a quick split reference, Theresa May over in the UK. They have something a little bit different from us with trying to break from Brexit, and it barely passed through the House. And basically her speech was trying to give it a second chance, trying to give Brexit a second chance. Again, making promises you cannot keep. And I just don't know I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't know what's going on through our political leaders' minds. And
I'm just annoyed. And we touched on it a little bit when we were talking to Darren a couple weeks ago. And she was like, it'll be a partial shutdown, it'll be this or that. But now here we are 2 weeks later, and I'm like, ooh, okay. So I don't know what's running through everybody's minds, and I can't speak for anybody else. But what makes me angry is two things. One, why can't we come up with some sort of a resolution? Number two, all the people that it's affecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking food out of their cabinets, and it is taking gas out of their cars, and that's not okay. And expecting people to go to work without getting paid. I mean, one of my biggest things is don't ever work for free. Don't ever do anything for free because your time costs something. It's
right.
Worth something. So I just don't know if there's an end in sight, and I hate to think that our president is sort of sitting there with his arms crossed being like, I'm not budging until I get my funding. I mean, a wall, first of all, as Darren said, it's just not what America's about. Second of all, it only solves one geographical region, and it doesn't even really solve for that. What about people being able to come in up in Alaska, up in Maine, all these other places? Some person could go tootling past the Statue of Liberty, get off downtown and Fide-Eye, and pop right up. Theoretically, of course, but I don't see an end in sight, and I don't know how they're going to come to some sort of an agreement, but I do think that it's disappointing that it's affecting so many people. It's a bad look, and nothing is being accomplished. I don't even know if there are real forward-moving conversations going on behind closed doors. I shudder to think that perhaps Trump is just sitting there like, nope, this is the way it is.
Well, remember what I told you earlier before we started recording about how people that are on public assistance or anything like that, they are getting their money early because the workers are not sure if they're going to be open in February. Can you imagine if just all of that went away and how much of a riot there would be and how everyone would just go crazy? Like, for right now, the fact that they don't know that they're going to be open is already scary.
CorBen, what do you think is going to happen? If you had a crystal ball, a political crystal ball, how much longer do you think this is going to go on?
Well, two things. One, I don't think it, and I say this very cautiously, I don't think it could last more than, say, another 2 weeks, because when I was listening to NPR, I love NPR politics. I find them a great source of like 12-minute little clips just here and there.
That's what I listen to.
And they were bringing it up in conversation as well. What does this read to his base? Because even people in his base were starting to retreat a little bit and being like, well, you can't promise, don't make promises you can't keep, and you're clearly not getting something done. We need to come up with an alternative, because if you're not going to lead us, we have no choice but to divert to plan B or to basically kind of submit. And I hate to say, and again, it's not the vibrato between the Democrats and the politics. It's their way or the highway. This is what our party wants. This is what our party needs.
You mean the Democrats and Republicans?
Democrats and, what did I say?
Democrats and politics.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. The Democrats and Republicans and Democrats. I'm gonna repeat myself. They're missing the key component, which is the American people, and they're not losing sleep over this. I mean, clearly they're still getting. What's the politician? The Republican with the one eye. The military service guy, I'm forgetting his name, the one that Pete Davidson made a comment about. Anyways, he sent a letter to Congress saying, please don't pay me until we get this resolved. It's not fair that my constituents and the everyday Americans who are working in the government aren't getting paid. Why should we? I was like, I gotta commend him for that.
And it's like, you're getting paid for doing what? For sitting there and crossing your arms and shaking your head and going, oh wow, this is a mess.
Well, and to tie into what our second point is, what we're getting into with this investigation, that I feel like is stripping away from the most important things, and it's completely diverting. Like, you know how they say dangling the carrot here, but really what's happening behind closed doors or what's happening off here to the right? Never in the history of any president that I can recall when I was digging back through has there been something so magnified 2 years into their presidency. 2 years. Now, 1 year we thought, okay, this is a pipe dream. This will go over. He'll be, whatever you believe, whether it be impeached or whether he'll overcome this. 2 years after the fact, and I think there's 40 people that are now. I mean, we have our main three who are under investigation, but there are people that fall under that branch below them, right? And I'm like, where does it stop? Where does it end?
And it's like, I was watching Bill Maher last night, and John Kasich was on, and Bill Maher kept pressing him. Like, is Trump dangerous? Is Trump dangerous? Is he a dangerous person? And Kasich said, he goes, no. I think that some of the decisions that he makes are dangerous, but I don't think that he's a dangerous person. So when I say that, I'm saying it in the vein of John Kasich, where, this might be a good time for me to say this out loud. Donald Trump and his entire family, as well as his corporation, they were one of my best clients during one of my jobs here in New York City. Eric and Lara and Don Jr. and Don himself and Ivanka are, in my eyes, in my experience, were some of the most thoughtful and thorough people that I'd ever come across. First of all, let's start with their team. Working with Trump's team and his kids' teams, they were the most professional, friendly, warm, competent people I worked with. They were world class right up at the top. Now, in addition to that, what I really liked was that every single time someone, had a baby or made a donation to the Trump Foundation or, whatever it was, there was always a handwritten card going out from the Trump family that was coming to my studio, which was then going out with some beautiful arrangement of flowers. Now, no, because I've gotten a lot of backlash. This has been sort of the theme the last couple of weeks. We have some really, really nasty iTunes reviews right now. I'll just come out and say it. And everyone's, of course, I have a target on my back, and I expected it to be that way anyway. So if those people are listening, just know that, like, this is where my viewpoints come from. I don't claim to be this, like, hard-hitting political news reporter, but I do have different experiences and various points of view that have fed into why I think what I think and why I say what I say. So for me, what I noticed was very interesting, and I talked to my friends about this when it was happening. It was very interesting for me to watch the election, because who I saw up on stage, and Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski of Morning Joe have said the same thing. Who they see up on stage, up on that podium, is not the man that they know. That's not the New Yorker we know. That's not the businessman, the dad, the fellow neighbor. That's not the guy. So it's frustrating, it's confusing, it's disappointing, but to give the Trump family a little, and I do not condone the shutdown or any other, the colluding and whatever, but to give them a little credit, the Trump family and their team have only ever demonstrated to me that they are lovely, professional, on top of things, thorough, and their message is very much that they want people to know that they're thinking of them and that they care. To add a little something on to that, in one of my previous jobs here in New York, we would host an event at one of the Trump hotels here in the United States. It was the best hotel experience I have ever had. Now, is it in an ideal location? No, it's pretty close to the airport, so it's a little bit noisy and so on and so on. But what I really thought was very interesting was that the chain of command, the style of management was fantastic, because whether I went up to a gentleman that was maintaining the property, mowing the lawn, or a maid that happened to be walking by, or a person at the front desk, all you had to say was, "Hey there, could I have dinner in my room by 6? I'll do the steak, medium. And then could I also schedule, a wake-up call for 7:45 the next morning? I'm in room 333. And you want to know what the response was? Absolutely. You want to know what the result was? It happened. It was thorough, on time, unbelievable. Because when you go to most other hotels, you walk up to a maid or you walk up to a maintenance gentleman and you say, "Hey there, could I have X or X?" The response you're going to get is, "Oh, well, I need to let them know. I need to ask my manager. Oh, let me get the catering people for you so you can ask them." Not at a Trump hotel, no ma'am. They give everyone the executive decision-making power. They empower them to create the best experience for their guests. Now, I realize that with Trump hotels, before anyone rolls their eyes and says, "Well, doesn't she know?" Yes, I know that it's just the Trump name. I get that. But you also have to understand from a business standpoint that these organizations that are related to the Trump name are also trying to take their cues from the top. So not only did I find things to be tip-top and world-class with Trump International, excuse me, but I also found the same to be true about his hotels. So, to round it out, and I realize I'm pulling a lot of personal references in, I am so disappointed with how things are being run right now, not only with the government shutdown, but with a lot of other decisions that have been made as well, particularly ones that affect our ability to get along with and trade with other countries. However, I still stand by what I said a minute ago. My experience with the Trump family has been nothing but lovely. So it is just very confusing. I don't know if I ever told you guys that. You guys are both looking at me.
You've told me that story.
I have? Okay. Have I ever told you?
No.
You're looking at me funny.
I'm just surprised. Well, and we've often talked about this. The person that we see or the person that we get to know is not necessarily the person who blows up in success or someone who takes off and runs with a different opinion or outlook on life when the cameras are on their face, and that's sad to say. But
well, on that note, I want to get into our next segment, because we have all been, this past week, like I said, was nuts, and all of us, all 9 of us that are in my company, were feverishly trying to prepare ourselves for some legit public visibility. And it was a trip. And we had a chance to sort of look at each other and look inward at ourselves and think, how the hell, what can I do? How is this going to come off? So let's get right into it. Let's get into our next segment. Oh my God, me. So when we are finally able to announce who is going to be joining us as a co-host, as a talent under my production company, it became very clear to us this week that we're going to be in the public eye. I'm not saying that we're going to be A-list celebrities, nowhere near. But we're going to be visible to a certain community that is noteworthy, that really pays attention, and that are professionals. I mean, this is the cream of the crop in terms of entertainment, Hollywood, media, all that good stuff. Now, CorBen, you already had a public Instagram because you are a working actor, a working singer, a working dancer. He is so talented. But Adriana, you and I are not. We are not public figures. I'd love for you to walk our listeners sort of how you were feeling this week, because you and I both really went into overdrive, shutting down personal accounts, all this other stuff. How did the realization that the world was going to be watching, so to speak, how did that make you feel?
Anxious. Not saying that, I didn't want to be out there, because I do. That's why we're doing this, and that's why we're letting our podcast out to the world. But, I was anxious, not so much about my personal life, but more about, what's next? What comes after, and how fast is it going to happen? Because look at this, we're 10 episodes in, and we've already got tons of haters. We had an email breach, someone tried to break into our email.
Yes, it was terrible.
It was one of the show's emails, and then my personal email was broken into.
And someone broke in. Not only did they break into the show email, but they broke in, they changed everything to a different language. We will not specify which one.
I don't even remember what it was.
I do.
Gibberish.
Well, you guys can guess. And they also discovered that this was going to be a thing, so because they accessed that, they almost got into our Anchor account. They then went and bought the domain,
which was available last week.
Oh my God, they bought the domain, so now it's not www.microscope.com. It has to be microscopepodcast.com. They took the Instagram, so now it's Microscope Podcast on Instagram instead of just being Microscope. Oh my God. But, it's funny because you and I think, we're tough bitches. And we are just not here for any games, but you and I are also very sensitive. And even though we don't really have anything to hide, I think I especially wear my heart on my sleeve, and I just don't always know how people are going to take that. So, I mean, like I said, you went on a rampage. You shut down all these personal accounts. We changed our passwords. We encrypted our devices. I mean, we took it to...
As much as I thought I was prepared and want to say I'm prepared for anything that comes my way in life, I was not prepared for what happened to us this week.
No. So it's not so much that, I have anything to hide. Because I really don't. But I know from past experience that my openness with my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and not just being, unapologetic about them, but also being vulnerable. I had this whole thing this past year where I was going through a really hard time. I was openly sharing my, emotional struggles on Facebook, and I had members of my own family that were screenshotting what I was posting on Facebook and, sending it around for sport. And making fun of me and calling me, tactless and whatever, because I'm a big believer that, mental health is just as important as any other health, and we need to be out there expressing ourselves, and, you can't hold it in. So, I had an opportunity when I auditioned for American Idol to be, a public figure. And I sort of got a taste of it back then, but nothing could have prepared me for this past week and what we had to do. But, let's really think about this. So, we had a lot of haters this week. That was interesting. We had someone on iTunes say that our podcast, makes them wish that there were euthanasia laws for humans, which I think is a really disgusting statement, but okay. But here's the thing about the haters, is I don't mind, because the whole point of doing this podcast, as well as our other shows, is to start conversations. The good, the bad, and everything in between. And if these people are taking time out of their day to say, God, I hate these girls, Samantha's the worst, bing bong, whatever, I mean, yeah, it might not be the nicest thing I've ever heard, but they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I care about, is that people start talking to one another. What do you make of the trolls?
One was like I said, and this person went out of their way. And guys, we're not talking about like just a quick little text. No, they wrote a forearm's length reply. And I was like, listen, even though it was negative, they went out of their way because that means that they care. For whatever the reason, they cared enough to not only give it a 0 star.
Yep.
not even a 0.5, just a 0 star.
I didn't even know you could do that.
But they wrote a really lengthy message because they cared that passionately.
We touched them.
We did.
Seriously, we touched
them without even having to touch them.
So, I mean,
that's the best one.
And I hate to say that negative people are irrelevant, because we all matter in the end, but they made their thoughts known.
Yeah,
right.
And that's fine. I don't think that the euthanasia law, like, that was unnecessary. That was really uncalled for. You know, but there was someone that was like, this is not a political podcast. But here's the thing. If you listened to episode 1, if you follow us on social media, we never, but I will take the blame for this, because I usually lead the political segment. I was not a political science major. I do not bury my head in CNN and Fox News every single hour of the day. I don't. The reason why I wanted to call this podcast Dicks and Politics is because usually all we would talk about was men. And then suddenly 2018, 2017 rolled around and we started to talk about politics as well. But what I noticed was a couple things. First of all, we really cared about what was going on, how it affected our fellow man, how it affected us. But second, I noticed that we didn't really even know how to talk about it, because these were conversations that were at such a level and in such a field that we had never touched before. So our hope, you know, juvenile, vain, ill-informed, whatever as it may have been, was that we could also learn something from our listeners who maybe are more well-versed in talking about politics and current events than we are. That's why we're always saying, hey, send us an email, DM us, leave a comment, talk to us about it. If there's an opinion or an experience or something that you can share with us that can help open our eyes, please do. We have always said that. The good, the bad, the ugly, write in and talk to us, because we're trying to sharpen our tools. We're trying to sort of, you know, sharpen our chops over here to talk about current events and politics. But clearly there's a lot of people that love the way we present this information, and then there's a few people that are like, these girls are a joke, it's nothing more than a news headline, blah 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 blah. But what else do you want me to say? I don't work for NPR. I'm not on Morning Joe. Like, I'm not in the press at the White House. What else do you want me to say?
I don't think we need to be politicians or have a major in it to have an opinion, because I feel like what's going on in the world is affecting the world. We have a right to feel some type of way and maybe talk about it.
Yeah. But apparently, according to these haters, I have no business talking about this, because I'm not a hard-hitting, political journalist.
We're being talked about, so that's great.
Yeah, I mean, look, seriously, our door is open.
Yeah.
Just if we're not getting it right, or if there's other things that you want us to cover, let us know.
Yeah,
tell us. The reason why we're always on Instagram, the reason why we all have public accounts where we are not always wearing makeup with perfect hair and shit like that, is because we want to show you guys that we're literally just like you. Like, we are normal ass people who are trying to figure it out just like you. So let's start the damn conversations. Don't be critical. Just talk to us. Just freaking tell us, So let's talk about, because CorBen, you started to say this earlier. Sometimes when people get a little famous, they get a little bit of a public image, they change. Now, we all know that you're already very successful, and it's only going to go up from here.
Yes.
Have you put any thought into how you're going to carry yourself when you are really, really in the public eye? What does that look like to you?
Okay. I will say this. I grew up in a very military, Christian, conservative, yet liberal household. I grew up in Alaska. In Alaska, we're a red state, but like no one cares. So we very much we have open opinion, open thoughts, and it's very lax. It's very people are very they take a back seat. We'll recognize when we're wrong. I've had this conversation with my parents before, more so my mom than my dad. I don't feel like I need to put my sexuality out there for everyone to know. I mean, if you ask me privately, yes, I have no problem telling you. But apart from my mom, like, who really needs to know?
Mm-hmm.
Our close family and friends know. Other than that, I've not felt the need to publicly say, hey, I'm gay, I'm dating a boy, or I'm not dating, or it was never it was never anyone's business. So taking that step forward, and we talked about this, Sam, I love my brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community. But I do think there gets to a point where it becomes too much. To bring on another aspect, Kevin Hart and his comments made in recent past. Now we're over this. This is long done. I personally was not hurt by this. I don't take things personally, and not to get off topic, it just doesn't bother me. It does not hit me that way because that was never my experience growing up. Now he went on Ellen. He talked about it. He apologized. Ellen is not the voice of all gays. She can only attest to her experience as a white woman, as a lesbian in this industry. Now Ellen is very much about for forgiveness. He's learned from his mistakes, let's move on. Then Don Lemon had something to say about it. Now, being a double minority, being gay and black, presents it's just a whole nother thing. And I feel as though, how many times does someone have to keep apologizing when they've already made it known? Now, some people would argue and say to keep apologizing until it resonates with people, until people genuinely hear your authenticity, but I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that either. People sometimes say things, and we're human, we make mistakes. Sometimes, you're ill-informed, you're tired, you're cranky, your mind is elsewhere, whatever. People say things that they don't necessarily mean for a laundry list of different reasons. But if you ever come to the occasion where you say something that perhaps isn't the most flattering or the most polished, you are going to apologize once, publicly, and then leave it at that. And you're not going to go chasing everyone around with an apology for the next 20 years of your career. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Just own up to it. That's all. Just own up to it.
Sure. And learn from it.
Yeah, if you're wrong, you're wrong.
Adriana, this whole thing, I know you're really, really feeling anxious about it. Well, I also think, for those of you who don't know Adriana personally, working in media, working in entertainment, this is something, especially from like a technical standpoint, that she has been working on and sharpening her skills for probably a decade now.
I've been on the back end of all that kind of media stuff. So now that, because I've had my Facebook private forever, my Instagram was private forever, and I was just working for celebrities and watching them be in the public eye, right? So now that I have this podcast and we have tons of listeners now, I'm just kind of like, I'm not afraid of what people will think of me, because I really don't give a fuck in real life or in media. I'm just like, I don't know what they're going to say. Maybe one day I might take it a certain way,
It's that vulnerable factor.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that you're beautiful, and I think that you're thoughtful and very impressive. So, if anyone hates on you, I'll be very, very surprised for anything. I'll be very surprised. I think for me, I don't know. It's funny because Abby said to me the other day when I was over at her place, she's like, Sam, you've been a public figure your entire life. You just have been stuck in this teeny tiny little town or in these small corporate offices and the world just doesn't know you yet, but you've been a public figure forever. And I think let's start with a positive. I think what I'm most looking forward to, and I said this a few episodes ago, is the opportunity to give back. And I know that everyone's probably rolling their eyes, but I truly mean it. Like, the thought of being able to take my parents on a vacation and pay for all of it.
Yeah.
Or the thought of being able to get the kids that I used to nanny for and, like, bring them to a toy store and get them whatever they want. Or the funds where, you know, my best friend has just gone into labor, like, 3 weeks early, and I need to get to her now. The thought of being able to just jump in a plane, not even necessarily a private plane, but just on a plane to do that, that is so exciting for me. Outside of me and my circle, the opportunities that might come my way to get more involved with causes that help our environment, that is so exciting to me. To be able to get introductions and get my foot in the door much quicker at organizations, you know, maybe like the ASPCA or something that's helping all these animals, like, that is really exciting for me. Mm-hmm. So those are the kinds of things that I'm looking forward to. And I also, like, I look at myself, you know, I'm 4'11". I'm thick.
You're a little meatball.
I am. I'm a little meatball. I'm thick. I'm adopted. I've experienced bullying and sexual assault and all these different, you know, things. But I've come out the other side. And I've come out stronger and more enlightened than before. And yeah, I might have some scars from it, but, like, I've pushed through. You know, anxiety, depression, all these different things I've pushed through. And I think that one of the biggest problems, especially here in America, but really all over the world, is loneliness. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people of all different races, ages, and backgrounds experience the feeling of loneliness. And to think that I might be able to come into, you know, someone's earbuds or come through someone's car or into their kitchen when they're making dinner and let them know, hey, you're not alone. And that even in the darkest of times, I said something on my Instagram, there is still hope. Like, that really excites me because there were other artists for me and other entertainers like Lady Gaga, for example. You know, who else has spoken out? Demi Lovato, Kristen Bell, when she was talking about how she, you know, struggles with anxiety. Sarah Hyland from Modern Family has had all sorts of health issues. You know, but then it also, you know, think of people like, I mean, even Michael Jackson. I know I was bringing him up on the episode with Darren, but there were all these other people that were in the public eye, in entertainment, that were a little weird, and they were a little quirky, and they were kind of out there, but they stood in it. And they were like, well, you know, this is who I am and how I am, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. I like it.
Yeah.
The thought of having the honor of being maybe one of those people to someone, you know, in a far-reaching corner of the world, really, really excites me. And so when I was going through my social media and making sure that, like, there were minimal pictures of me and my 6 chins, you know, online, and I'm going through my LinkedIn, I'm doing all this stuff, I just kept thinking, you know what? Maybe I'll just leave this, because this is what makes me me. Just like the things that make you you are unique. And yeah, so it was sort of a weird week for me to go through that and realize that I'm definitely a hot reactor. Mm-hmm. I am a hot reactor. I have a very thick head. And I know all of that. And I am rough around the edges, but I'm me.
Right.
And maybe that's not so bad.
I think the success of this podcast has definitely motivated me to work even harder than I've already been working.
Which, how is that even possible?
Right, but it's also because I see the potential of what this has, where one day, like you were saying, I could just take a plane somewhere. I could just help somebody out and not have to worry about it. Like, I will be making a living off of something that I love to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what's exciting me right now, is that the success is just going, it's up and up and up and up. It's like, Wow.
Well, one of my biggest motivators, and I won't give away too much information, but one of my biggest motivators for doing my best to steer this show and this company in the right direction is because I want to get it to a point where you're making the kind of money to really take care of your family the way you've always wanted to, and so that you can then relax for a second and maybe take yourself on a little trip. I'd love to go with you, but if you want to go alone, I understand. You can take CorBen. I'll stay here with the beta fish.
I will be going on vacation next. I will not be here next month.
That's one of my big motivators is to be able to give you, that. And then I think about, Abby and all the things that she wants to do, and CorBen, the things that you want to save up for and do. And, I think about, just everyone on our staff. So to give you guys an update on staff and really what's going on in the company. So for Dixon Politics, we started off with me, Adriana, and Hannah. And then Hannah went through some pretty significant life changes over the last couple of months, and she's officially moving to Florida. So what we've decided to do is, and this is with Hannah's blessing, CorBen is my neighbor. And so what we're going to do is CorBen and Hannah are going to sort of tag team as the third host of Dixon Politics. So some weeks it might be CorBen, some weeks it might be Hannah, some week you might have all four of us. We're going to kind of fly by the seat of our pants, take it as it comes, and do it that way. But outside of Dixon Politics, you guys know that we have our special edition episodes, and I want to just talk very quickly about them. They're all very different. So Dixon Politics, I think we've decided, is like the millennials' guide to life and what the hell is happening now and how are we interpreting this and digesting it. What the hell? Then we have When I Knew, which is a human interest piece, and it's interviews with people who have either made these really brave, very unique decisions that brought them down a path less traveled, or it's people who have overcome huge challenges in their lives and how they're changed and moving forward. Our next When I Knew that we are recording, we've got a couple. We've got When I Knew I Wanted to Do Drag full-time. We are interviewing Fifi Dubois, who is a very well-known drag queen here in New York City. So talented. And we're also going to be doing a When I Knew I Wanted to Join the Military. And this is with a woman that's in the military who's just kick-ass, and she's also a mother. We're really looking forward to speaking with her. And so When I Knew won't always be, heavy. And even though it is a human interest piece, we don't want them to be heavy. Rather, we want to focus on the positive and how you take lemons and turn it into lemonade. Then we've also got Microscope, which for a lot of people, people were DMing me and they're like, what the hell is this? Why did you... So Microscope is going to be co-hosted by our friend Mike, who is working on a PhD in microbiology. And it is going to be focused around what is happening to our planet from an environmental standpoint. And in that vein, what is then also backed up by science. Because I think, especially in 2018, I noticed that there were ads everywhere, and we were talking about them oh, buy this bracelet and we'll remove plastic from the ocean, or, oh, buy this canvas tote and the sea turtles will all magically be better. I know we want to help, I know we want to get involved, but for goodness sake, where is our money actually going? Where are these organizations from? What is this? So I wanted to give people the facts in a way that's fun, and I love this word, digestible, and quick, so that you guys can figure out what is really going on. What organizations do we personally have experience with that, your money will go to the right cause, this, that, and the other. And so that's, God.
Let me say this. The people we are today, what this podcast is now, will not be what it is in 2, in 5, in 10 years.
Yeah.
Because we will have grown so well. And our thoughts and opinions may grow and change as well. Mm-hmm. So guys, before we sign out, because we could talk for days and we love to talk,
Yeah. Give us a little grace.
Yeah, give us some grace and recognize that this is totally new for us. And that, like I said, the people we are now, the thoughts and opinions we have now, the podcast that it is now will not be what it is tomorrow, will not be what it is when season 2
Today is
rolls
January
around.
19th, 2019, and right now we're sitting here all of us, none of us are, well, the people in this room, we're not parents. We do not have children.
Mm-hmm.
We are living on our own, yeah, but, I mean, I'm 30. Adriana's 20, what, 9, 8?
28.
28.
23.
Yeah. And think about who the hell, like, let's take this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
CorBen, you were 13. Who the hell were you when you were 13? A somebody.
I thought I was a somebody. But no, like, I 13 years ago, and I don't mind sharing this, I was not the person that I am now. I had a strange relationship with my dad, even though we were very close. I was in North Carolina studying abroad for school, and I was struggling with my sexuality at the time, even though I knew I was gay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something that I was comfortable with just sharing or talking about, and I was in one of the most accepting places that I could have possibly came out. So that was my 10 years ago.
Yeah. Where were you? You were 18. Oh my God.
College, doing college, partying, not thinking about my future at all. Just being me, but...
Did you have, so before we move to me, did you guys have the same political views and opinions that you have now?
It
No.
wasn't even on my radar.
Okay.
It wasn't on my
Did you
radar
have
either.
the same sort of social, cultural views that you have now?
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay. So CorBen, you say yes. Why?
Why? Because, and I've said this before, while yes, I love my peers, and while yes, I love I don't always like to hang out with them. Because they're party goers.
Yeah,
They are, some are into recreational and some are into others.
Heavens.
Well, I say no because I've changed so many times. Not changed as in, like, who I am, but just I've grown.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had so many different stages in my life where I keep thinking differently. But I think this is my best me now.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So 10 years ago, I was 20. I was just coming out of an abusive relationship. I had dropped out of college. I was back in my old childhood home, in my own childhood bedroom, and I was, for all intents and purposes, I was a mess. I had no sense of direction. I think at this point, I had just started teaching preschool, which was slowly but surely bringing me back to life and sort of bringing me back into finding my footing as a human being that was worth someone's respect and time, and who was worth and worthy of opportunities. I was very thin, and I just remember feeling so frustrated because you're 20, right? You are no longer a teenager, but you're not really like a professional living on your own. And I remember being so damn frustrated because I wanted so badly to be taken seriously. And I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously. Heck, I could barely take myself seriously. So then I remember my next focus was, well, I want to be married by the time I'm 23, first kid by the time I'm 25. So I went all around, honey, and I was going on dates, not sleeping with, but going on all these different dates with all these different kinds of guys. That was my main focus. And then when none of that nonsense panned out, literally it took like no relationships working out for me to be like, you know what? Fuck it. I need to love myself. I need to focus on myself. So I pulled it together. I was nannying for this great family that was a few towns over, whom I'm still very close to and I'm in touch with. And, you know, that's when I started to realize, oh, now wait a minute. Okay, all right. So I live on my own. I can go to the grocery store. At this point, I'm 23. Live on my own, go to the grocery store, okay. But, like, people still aren't taking me seriously because I'm a nanny. All right. Well, why do I want to be taken seriously? What does that actually mean to me? And I realized that what that meant to me was the ability to create and sustain and maintain my own livelihood. So I was like, well, fuck this again. And I came into New York and I haven't looked back. But going back even further, once upon a time, I went to school for musical theater. I wanted to be in the arts. I wanted to do all of that. And it's funny that here I am, 10 years later, I'm 30. I am no longer super thin. And I have no interest in having children anytime soon, or really even getting married, to be perfectly honest. But I still have that career, like, fire in me. And how funny that in tandem with having this really cool corporate job that I love, I have found my way back to creative. It's just in a different way. If we can leave you with anything at the end of season 1, just know, as CorBen touched on a moment ago, this is who we are now, but we are going to continue to change and evolve and grow. Who we are in our hearts, I think, will always remain the same. We will always be thoughtful and empathetic people who want to care for others and the environment and all that stuff. But our views on politics and social construct and all these things, that might change. And that's okay. For those of you who are in junior high school, listening to this, you're going to be friends with maybe 1 or 2 people that you went to junior high and high school with, and then you're going to outgrow everyone else, and that's normal, and that is okay. Because the same thing will happen when you're in CorBen. We talk about this all the time. When you're in your early 20s, you grow out of people. Even in your late 20s, you grow out of people.
Yep.
A little piece of advice I like to give people is remember that even when you do grow apart from maybe certain family members or especially certain friends, I want you to remember that those friendships were real. Those moments where you were laughing and having fun, those were genuine and those were real. But time marches on and the world keeps spinning and people change and growing apart and even growing out of yourself and who you used to be. That's a good thing. It's all good. And I said in my Instagram post this week when I was talking about what being a CEO meant to me, and I said, as my little last word, you know how when you close your eyes really, really tight, at first it's black. But then, if you wait a second, you can start to see different colors. And what I want you to remember is when you start to see different colors, you then start to see light. And what I take from that is that even when things are really, really dark, there is still color. There is still light. And when you find yourself sitting in darkness, sit there. Do everything you can to not act on it, but sit in it. Because you need to. Because it's those dark moments where you are going to get to know yourself like you never knew yourself before. That is when you are going to see exactly what you are made of. And even though it's dark, there is color, there is light. And when you're ready, stand up, open your eyes, and know that even when things seem hopeless, there is hope. Where there is darkness, there is light. Things will always get better as long as you do everything you can to keep pushing forward. We want to thank all of you so much for following and subscribing, for rating and reviewing the good, the bad, the ugly. We truly love it all. We did this because we wanted to start conversations, we wanted to push ourselves, and we have accomplished exactly that. And because of our followers, because of our supporters, especially those of you here in our early days, I'm now a CEO of a company. Adriana's computer lit itself on fire.
If I had a freaking dime for every time I've heard this girl say that in the past 2 weeks.
It's just nuts.
It's unbelievable, right?
It is absolutely insane. But as I said in our press release that went out this week, there was clearly a missing link in the podcast world. Mm-hmm. And we, you and I, felt it. And Hannah did too. Because we were all listening to podcasts or we were looking at these different, quick video web series. And we were all looking for these other people, especially other women, that weren't, stick figure gorgeous models, too cool for school, that didn't have a fancy degree and experience in journalism. Like, where were the regular people like us that were watching the news and dating and having sex and trying to save money and trying to figure out how to navigate, the job world and a career? Where were they? We wanted to be those people because we needed each other. And then we thought, well, maybe we should do a podcast because maybe there's other people out there that are looking for what we were looking for. And damn it, Adriana, we were right. Mm-hmm. Because that is who is following us, and those are the people supporting us. So thank you so much to our friends, thank you to our colleagues, thank you to all of my former clients that listen to the show. We appreciate your support, your open-mindedness, your encouragement. that wraps season 1. Season 2, we're going to come back as the same people, but we're going to try to be maybe a little bit sharper.
Maybe we'll have better equipment. My computer might be fixed.
Maybe your computer will not be smoking in the corner of the room right now. Who knows? Maybe we'll even be able eventually one day to afford an actual studio and not record in my living room. The sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, thank you guys all so much. And to our current sponsors, we do want to thank Anchor FM and The Infatuation. Anchor FM is where we upload all of our content, and we work with them to have it stream to different platforms all over the world. Anchor, they are on it. It is free, it is easy, and they were the ones that introduced us to the team over at The Infatuation, which is an app as well as a service that can help you find restaurants, places to eat, and they can also give you concierge service in 22 major cities around the world. So thank you very much to our listeners, our supporters, our haters, our sponsors. We are looking forward to season 2. We're ready. So catch us next week, every Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else in between. And you can also join us at www.dicksandpolitics.com, or you can check out all of our shows and discover what they're all about at www.whateveryousayproductions.com. So, signing off season 1, I am Samantha.
I'm Adriana.
And I'm CorBen.
And you've just listened to Dicks and Politics. Thank you for listening to Dicks and Politics.
Digestible and unfiltered content about men, money, and moments.
New episodes every Wednesday.
Don't forget to subscribe.